the fucking giant light pod comes over you. It's already killed a couple kids, and his best idea is everyone hold hands. Hold hands?
I think that was code for get Beverly in here. Let's all hold hands. That's what he was talking about.
The hand holding was the stand-in for the orgy?
Exactly. Yeah, guys, we're about to die. Beverly, can we all hold hands again?
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Chat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash, it's our Christian Duty Marsh.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shat-themovies.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, Lovecraft Country, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. Find all that information and past episodes at shatontv.com. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatthemovies.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and present live edits of this podcast. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, this week we continue with the month of Hot Sauce Steve. And we are reviewing a Stephen King film. So I was wondering, how many Stephen King films do you think we've done?
One.
I think we've done two. We've done Pet Sematary and Stand By Me.
Oh, plus Shawshank.
Correct.
Oh, and Shawshank, yeah.
Yep. We did three more.
Wow.
We did The Shining.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
You remember Emilio Estevez? Truck Stop?
Oh, Maximum Overdrive,
yeah.
right?
Yep. And then almost the exact copy of this film without the murdering clown.
Stand By Me. Got that one.
That is correct.
We already said that one.
Did you say that?
Yeah, that's what I said. I got that one.
Oh, okay. You got it. Well, this week for Steve, who is commissioned the entire month, he's a wonderful benefactor and supporting us in every way. He commissioned the 1990 psychological horror drama miniseries, and it was It.
The story of It revolves around a predatory monster that can transform itself into its prey's worst fears, allowing it to exploit the phobias of its victims. Cast members included Tim Curry, Richard Thomas, John Ritter, and Harry Anderson. It was filmed over a period of 3 months in New Westminster, British Columbia in mid-1990 with a budget of $12 million, which at the time was double the usual television budget. The miniseries was first broadcast during the November sweeps month, and despite risk factors, mixed pre-airing critical reviews, and coverage of President George H.W. Bush's foreign trips cutting into the program, it was ABC's biggest success of 1990, pulling through with 30 million viewers for its two parts. It was nominated for 2 Emmy Awards, 1 Eddie Award, 1 Youth and Film Award, and a Best Miniseries recognition from the People's Choice Awards. It won 2 of the nominations, an Emmy for Outstanding Music Composition for Richard Bellis' score, and an Eddie Award for the miniseries editing. So Big D, Ash, we always ask what your memories are of the movie or series we're covering. Big D, we'll start with you. What do you remember about 1990's It?
So I'm going to take a lot of our listeners who are under maybe 40, 45 back on a journey to the time when the TV movie or TV miniseries, it was a big deal. There were no streaming services. There was no premium cable. You had the major broadcasting channels. And I can remember the day after, which was a miniseries, or it may have been even just one night. It aired in 83. This thing was one of the biggest, highest rated single events in television history. It got a 62% share. That means 62% of the TVs on that night watched this show. And it was terrifying. It was about nuclear war. It stuck with me to this day. But I can also remember as a kid, things like V, which came out in 83. It was aliens come. They're kind of, oh, we're friendly, but then it turns out they're not. There was one, and then there was like V Retaliation or something like that, another one in 84. And in grade school, I can remember all the kids talking about it. This was bigger than any movie, bigger than anything that we could see. So Stephen King also tied into this, and a lot of his movies came out, some not as successful as others. We got The Stand, which was a big one. It in 1990. We got The Langoliers, the Tommyknockers came out. And I don't know that Stephen King really does translate well to television miniseries, but that was something that was big in the 80s and 90s.
I mean, he must have, because they just kept happening, right? And I want to stress what Big D's talking about here. This wasn't just like our parents sitting around for this or adults sitting around for this. Like kids at school are like, oh man, you're going to watch The Stand? And it would always come out, it was like Sunday night or some shit,
yes.
right? It was so you would like, you know, do all your stuff for the weekend. You would shower up, you'd be ready for bed, and then everyone would gather around and you would watch these Stephen King miniseries. And I remember watching The Stand. I remember the Langoliers with the little Pac-Mans. I remember the Tommyknockers. But I think I was just a little too young when it came out, because I would have been like 10. And I remember The Stand being fucking awesome, and it got me really into Blue Oyster Cult for a while as a kid. But I'm told that one really doesn't hold up, so I've been afraid to rewatch any of these.
Yeah, if you were too young, I guess I was way too young because I was 7, but still watched it. Like I remember our whole family gathering together to watch all of these made-for-TV films, and I remember specifically watching it for the first time. It was so frightening. I was completely freaked out. I thought it was so much fun, and Tim Curry's clown completely defined my lifelong fear of clowns. I hate them. And I think at the age of 7, I kind of became like this instant like Stephen King fan. I have tons of love for a lot of his books, The Shining being my favorite of all of them. And later that year in 1990, I would go and check the book out, It, from the public library there in New Orleans. And I got so scared reading it that I would keep it in my mom's car at night so that it wasn't near me. So like I would read it and then I would go outside and I would put it in my mom's minivan and then come back inside and go to sleep because it freaked me the fuck out. But I have loved this story forever. I'm a big fan of the recent movies that came out. I'm a big fan of this miniseries. But like Eugene, I was super nervous to go back and re-watch it because it's been so long since I had seen it and I have such good memories of it that I was like, is this going to hold up? Because it's a made-for-TV movie from 1990.
This is something I feel so sad about. I think we got into TV and TV podcasting right at the end with Game of Thrones, which I think was the pinnacle of community watching. Everybody sat there. It was on. It was a communal event.
Excuse me, have you not watched like the recent communal things? It wasn't over. I mean, you got Wheel of Time. You've got The Witcher.
It's not.
You've got lots
same.
of things people are watching.
No, the numbers are so much smaller. There's nothing that would ever get a 62 share or that you would get a majority of households watching because everybody now will either watch it on their own, they'll watch it out of sync with everyone. Unless there is something big, like hoping when Game of Thrones or Westworld come back that you'll get a large audience together. But I don't think it'll ever be the same. And I think kids will miss that. Running to school to be like, did you watch The Stand? Did you watch V? Who's doing that today?
One of the indicators that this is just going to get worse, Big D, too, is that Netflix is raising its price to, I think, over $20 a month because they're investing so heavily in content. And so you're going to see everybody else follow suit, right? At least the ones that are basing their income on entertainment. So like Amazon might not because they're primarily a sales company or a retail company. Apple might not because they're primarily a technology company. But like you bet your ass that Disney and everybody else are going to be getting in the game here to try to like match that. So the idea of all of us watching the same thing, it's pretty much out the door, right? It's becoming so much more niche. And then you're going to get all the international stuff, right? The stuff from Korea, the stuff from India. It's going to be very fragmented. But I agree with Ash that there are still some standout things that will still, I don't know, be there. I think House of the Dragon, yeah, I think that's going to be one. Westworld, I'm not so sure. But if I were to make a prediction, I would think Disney comes out the winner kind of in all of this because they've just got so much of those huge like brand recognitions. But enough about marketing talk. God, I'm such a dork. Let's get into it. Roll the trailer.
Why are you guys anywhere?
We're sort of a club.
Yeah, the Losers Club.
You want in?
Yeah, I do.
Hey, we're 7 now. Lucky 7. I want to kill it.
I just want to forget about it.
It's not just us. It's all the other kids, too. Who's gonna be next?
It kills kids, damn it.
You killed my brother George, you bastard! Let's see you now.
Maybe it's the water.
The water. Maybe it's the sewer.
Hi, Georgie.
You're not real! You're not real!
Was it Pennywise?
Big white guy, red nose, about 75 feet tall, mouth full of razor sharp teeth.
You smell that? That's death. Losers fight it. Losers die. They all flow.
In the spring of 1960, Georgie Denbrough plays with a paper sailboat made by his stuttering older brother, Bill. It goes down a storm drain where Georgie encounters Pennywise, the dancing clown. Pennywise entices Georgie to reach in to retrieve his boat, only to fatally tear his arm off. A few months later, Bill and asthmatic Eddie Kasprack befriend the chubby new kid, Ben Hanscom. They are joined by Beverly Marsh, who lives with her abusive father, the comical Richie Tozier, and Jewish Boy Scout Stan Uris. Ben develops feelings for Beverly, but discovers she has feelings for Bill. The children are bullied by Henry Bowers and all have encounters with Pennywise.
So I think one of the things that Stephen King does really well is he tells these allegorical stories that remind you about how alienating it is to be a kid. It feels like nobody sees you. It feels like nobody knows what you're going through. I think we saw kind of some of that in Stand By Me, but the fear of that is kind of personified like to the nth degree here in this story, because not only do the parents not get you, like they literally can't understand what's happening to you. They don't understand what you're going through because they can't actually see it. So whenever you're seeing these true horrors with like blood and the clown himself and these balloons everywhere, the parents have no idea what's going on because they can't even visualize it. And that's fucking scary. And for me, this is pretty much the most brilliant metaphor for like puberty of all time. And then as an adult, it scared me in a different way because like I don't ever want to cross that barrier of not seeing. Like I want to see my kids in a way that my parents didn't see me. But my question is like based off of his movie, based off of his stories, like are we all just damned in the end to become Derry residents?
I thought the most brilliant metaphor for puberty was flowers. Just a young girl.
She's blooming?
Blossoming.
Her
a young
petals blooming.
boy turning his face to the sun. No, Ash, you're totally right that this was literally the only thing even remotely scary about this movie was the parents not seeing it. And to clarify, if people have watched it and don't understand the deep horror of this, it's not that the kids are hallucinating and the parents aren't. That shit's actually there, but the adults don't see it. Right? When Bill's mom is picking up the bloody photo book and she's completely oblivious to the mess on her hands, I was like, oh shit. Like I thought the movie was going to achieve that level of creepy throughout. And when they did go back to that point, you know, again with the sink, with the blood coming out of the sink as well. And, you know, poor Bev's trying to clean it up and it's just smearing everywhere and her dad's face is right next to it. Those parts really worked.
I enjoy that stuff, but when they get heavy-handed with it, oh, Mr. Ross. When Mr. Ross is watching Beverly get accosted by Henry and the other greasers, and they're basically sexually assaulting her, and he looks at her, and she's like, I thought he would help me, but then he turns around. That stuff is so heavy-handed. We get what you're saying. You didn't need it.
That actually like happens though. Like that's happened to me before.
Right.
So like, I don't think it's heavy handed. Like, I think that's just like what like asshole dudes do.
No, but what they're saying is the fact that the people in the town, the adults, are oblivious to what's going on.
I think Mr. Ross saw that shit.
Right.
He just went inside.
That's what I mean. Like, that's just like, he's just an asshole. You know, she's a girl. She'll figure it out.
Okay.
She must be loose because all those boys want to talk to her.
I mean, she did go to the bathroom with like 6 guys at one point. So just saying.
She's asking for it.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying she likes the fellas.
No, I'm saying that's what Mr. Ross is thinking, like that little floozy, right? But I know that you're saying, Gene, that you didn't find other things scary, but I think the clown's fucking scary. So coulrophobia is a real thing where people have this genuine terror of clowns and all things associated with clowns. So like red noses, white face paint, so on and so forth. And Pennywise, I think, is one of your consummate scary clowns. You've got like John Wayne Gacy, the Joker, and Pennywise. And like, that's basically it. And I get it. It makes sense. Like, this is supposed to be something that kids love that turns out to eat them. It's that whole like wolf in sheep's clothing thing. But Tim Curry is so incredible in this, and he really sells it because he has this sarcasm to him that's like really disaffected. So like, not only is he like eating kids because he's like this 300-year-old monster, but he could give a fuck about it. Like, it's just like what he does. Like, he's completely bored by the whole idea. And I don't know if either of you have seen the movies where Bill Skarsgard plays Pennywise and in the 2-part movies It, but in that one, his makeup is so much scarier, and his voice I think is a lot scarier. But like, having Tim Curry like sound like a clown from the Bronx, like come out and like try to murder you, and the getup that he has, it feels wrong in a way that Bill Skarsgard's It doesn't. Because like, you look at Bill Skarsgard, it's like, well, yeah, duh, like that's a monster and it's going to kill you. When you look at Tim Curry, it doesn't look like that. It looks like he got fired from a kid's birthday party. He's homeless, so he's living in the sewer, and he might eat you on a Saturday.
No, but I think I like that. Curry looks like a legit clown. He looks like Bobcat Goldthwait, like Shakes the Clown. He looks like somebody who just got fired, like you said. So when he's down there baiting the kids, I could see a kid being like, yeah, he's in the sewer, but he kind of looks like a clown. The Bill Skarsgård, you see that thing from a distance, you know that's deadly. That is a bad thing. Stay away from it. I want my clown killer to be somewhat enticing.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to bait the kids at all. I mean, the opening scene, he's just behind some linens. Is like, and he just fucking kills the girl, right? And that's where I always misunderstood Pennywise. And I blame the best known scene in the movie. Like, even if you haven't seen it, everyone knows the scene with Georgie, right? Where, Pennywise is down there, in the storm drain. And in that one, he's like, hey, Georgie, come down here. We got, fun stuff going on. We got cotton candy and rides and blah, blah, blah. But Pennywise isn't John Wayne Gacy. Like, he's not a lovable clown. He's not supposed to be luring children in with promises of fun. His whole power is supposed to be fear and chaos. I mean, Stephen King even said he picked a clown because they terrify children. He doesn't really need to bait them in. And I think that that's just such a good scene. It's such a fun scene that we just keep associating that, with Pennywise, that he's like, come down here, little kid, have the candy, ride the rides.
But that is what he is in the book. And the movies capture that more. So like, there's a lot of scenes that are built into the films that came out recently that show Pennywise, even as scary as Bill Skarsgård looks, like luring kids in, because he chooses, because It at his core, spoiler alert, is not a clown. He's like a pure light being, and so he can go and turn into whatever he wants, and he's turned into that because he chooses it, because it's a way to entice those kids and cause them fear, because that's what he feeds on. He doesn't feed on the kids, he feeds on their fear, which this miniseries doesn't do a very good job of explaining.
Does he? I thought, like you said, basically that the fear makes them taste better. It's like a tender meat.
Right. But like, fear is like his kryptonite. If you don't fear him, he can't hurt you.
But okay. Because I read this, and it's hard for me to remember that far, that long ago.
That's why when they're like, it's not real, Bill. It's not Georgie. It's because if he believed it was Georgie, he would get scared and then he would be enticed. Or when he's like, got the wolf hands on him, he's like, it's not real. I said it's not real. It's supposed to, he can't hurt them because they're not afraid of him.
But this brings up an interesting point, though, because in horror movies, all the great ones, whether it's Friday the 13th, or Nightmare on Elm Street, or even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like you understand the monster, you understand the bad guy, you understand how they operate, you understand the rules, right? And I'm not saying this about the book, but I'm saying about this version of it. It's so fluid that you never really quite get a grasp of like what the fuck it is all about.
Yeah, they don't do a very good job explaining it. And what they also don't do a very good job explaining is the decor in this movie. Because the movie is set at like the weirdest time, because there's this turn from the 80s to the 90s. And I get it. It was weird for fashion. It was weird for politics. And apparently it was hella weird for home decor. Because let's talk about Ben's house. So we flash to the future and Ben is there. And he's all sexy architect and he's not chubby anymore. And he comes in with this pretty woman in her cha-cha dress. And they come in and he's basically in a warehouse. So I'm like, oh, cool. This is like a studio. But nope. They go upstairs and there's a bed. And what is hanging from like the 30-foot ceiling? A fucking phone cord that is attached to the phone that he uses when Mike calls him. Like, is this supposed to be cool in 90? Is it useful at all? What do you do when the fucking cord gets unplugged? I have so many questions, and I couldn't focus on his like whole like, I remember you, Mike scene because of how jacked up his house was.
He was clearly inspired by Billy Squier. If you guys have not seen the music video for Billy Squier's Rock Me Tonight, go watch it because there is shit going on in his apartment that makes no sense. His band's like in the other room. Walls are moving around. There's just like sheets blowing in from nowhere. But I wasn't as bothered by Ben's house as Stan's house. And we get to see that one a little late in the movie. But Stan's with his wife. They're watching Perfect Strangers. He gets up, and as he's going up the stairs, I swear to God, I saw a mid-wall breezeway that housed two statues of like grouse feeding below a glass funnel of Christmas ornaments. Like, what in the holy hell was going on in 1990?
Well, I think it was a yuppie thing. Do you remember Juliette Lewis-Dreyfus's house in a Christmas Vacation, The Neighbors? The yuppies, that was the thing. It was like neon, it was glass, it was stuff that didn't like functionally make any sense, but it just looked kind of futuristic.
Yeah, but all of them were yuppies. I mean, fucking Bill's outfits. I'm like, what the shit is going on?
Again, part of the plot that is not explained very well in this movie is that because they were able to take on Pennywise, they're like remarkably, obscenely successful in their normal lives. So they're actually all really rich.
Yeah, I mean, Mike brings that up. Like, he's like, oh, you guys all went away and everyone became famous and I had to stay here and, I'm the lighthouse keeper, yada, yada, yada. But what I'm saying is, like, just because you have money doesn't mean you have to fall into that cultural trap. Somebody that was in costuming and decor was a yuppie for sure.
I mean, they got Bill in that ponytail. I think they lost all credibility at that point, but
there's nothing wrong with ponytail.
He could have spent some of the money removing that weird mole he has on his face.
Yes. So. But this movie, it obviously famously was made for TV. And I don't know if it aired over 2 days, or I think it was 2 days and The Stand was 4 days, right? So this was day one, day two. It was a Sunday and a Monday. It is so obviously TV. This is the first time I watched a film that we couldn't get in Letterboxd. This was the old ratio, the black bars on the side. The resolution was passable, but the production was so made for TV. When Georgie is floating his little boat down the street, it is a sunny day wherever they filmed this. And they're trying to make it a rainy day by having water cannons or whatever they're doing. But it is clearly a sunny day. You would never see this shit on a movie set. And the audio, the quality was kind of shitty and hollow. You could hear that it was like an echo. And all of the ADR that they did, it was out of sync. The Foley work was over the top. There's a part where Bill is telling George, hey, if you want to get the paraffin, go down in the basement. There's an audible gulp. I was like, what is this? Or all the transitions. Obviously, for all the commercials were fade to blacks. But there's at least 20 times that the camera focuses in on one of the kids' faces, and then it fades to the adult. Or it's the adult fading into the kid. Like, we would forget who these characters were.
Yeah, like during Stand By Me, Richard Dreyfuss would be like thinking about the past and we'd have the camera on him for a while. Like, this is a little awkward, but it wasn't jarring. This is jarring. Big D, I can't believe that you even noticed the sun being out during the paper boat scene, because all I kept thinking was, that's a paper hat.
No, it's
paper boats. No, paper boats are not shaped like that. That is a hat. Paper boats have like a hull.
Really?
Right now, Google paper boat.
Okay.
Okay.
Really?
And then Google paper hat and look at the two.
Okay, paper boat.
And the thing, while you're doing that, I also like to point out that was clearly on a string. Like they were pulling it. It was very much like moving at a clip.
I am shocked. There is a difference in the hull. And the mass is I think you're right. I'm shocked.
Now look at a paper hat.
That's what I'm doing. There's a clear difference.
It's a paper hat.
Oh, this movie is shit. It just lost all credibility.
Well, in July, the group is joined by Mike Hanlon, played by Marlon Taylor, a black kid being pursued by Bauer's gang. The children, dubbing themselves as the Losers Club, chase the gang off with a rock fight. While looking through Mike's history scrapbook, the losers realize that Pennywise, whom they refer to as It, is not a human being, but rather an ancient creature who awakens every 30 years to hunt and eat children. Bill realizes It killed Georgie, leading the losers into Derry sewers to kill the creature.
So before recent times of premium cable channels like HBO and Showtime, if you were an A-list actor, if you were a movie star, you would never be on TV. TV was a death sentence. It was where you went when careers died. Today, you kind of think it's a normal thing because we've been spoiled by like True Detective, where you had Woody Harrelson, you had Matthew McConaughey, or you've had Mahershala Ali we did recently. You get Oscar winners all the time now would be doing TV series, and it's just another extension of acting. But back in the 80s and the 90s, that was not the case. TV actors were TV actors, and this cast is just littered with 80s and 90s like television icons. The cast is the main actors. Bill, that is Richard Thomas from the Waltons. That is John Boy. You got Mike, who is Tim Reid from WKRP in Cincinnati. Richie is the judge, Harry Anderson from Night Court. Ben is John Ritter, who's, I forget what the hell his name was. Jack Tripper, yes, from Three's Company. So other than Tim Curry, who is probably the best known from this movie, the rest of them were very well-established TV actors.
But that's what shocked me, Big D. I'm watching this movie and fucking Richard Thomas is just eating shit over there. And I'm like, please, someone save this movie. And then I see John Ritter. I see Harry Anderson. I'm like, yay, they're here to save the movie from Richard Thomas's Troll 2 level acting. But they were just as bad. It hurt to see John Ritter failing this badly on screen. And now I understand why Tim Curry wasn't on screen with everybody else. Like, I'm sure he just had them film him in his own little green screen room away from all the losers. He went back to, his trailer, and then everyone else could come on set and do their thing.
But it wasn't really their fault, though, right? Because, like, the things they chose to do here in the script, like, my favorite was when you've got Ben, who looks nothing. Young Ben looked nothing like John Ritter at all.
Well, he started running, so
Well, which also changed his hair color and the bone structure of his face.
Yeah.
But he had the only thing they could give us that would make them be the same is that he would make a fist and creepily rub his thumb up and down his cheek when he's scared. And so John Ritter, when he's talking on his 30-foot phone cord, finding out that this is happening, what does he do? He has to rub his face so it can fade into young Ben rubbing his own face because of Henry Bowers.
But I feel like one of the easiest things that you can do in like community theater level is stare in disbelief or express shock. And everybody in this movie was asked to do that about 30 times, and they failed like 28 out of 30 times. Much like Big D's gulp, there was a lot of like, huh? It was really, really noticeable how bad it was. And it's not just the adult actors in this movie that are terrible. The kids are fucking terrible. The choreography is terrible when we get the few action scenes that we do see. And they're really quasi-action scenes. I wouldn't think anything in this movie actually constitutes action. But just like the people doing battle with each other, they're utterly laughable. The first that we see is like Bev, and she's being threatened by her boyfriend who's like whipping a belt at her. He's like, oh, you're going to come get disciplined. Like, you're not going to cheat on me. You think I'm a fool? And she knocks him out with what I think was like a slow motion Vaseline jar. It like bonks him on the head, and he's dazed for like a good minute while she gives her big speech. But far more egregious than that is that rock fight, the big standoff between the Bowers gang and the losers. I mean, these kids are up, I don't know, 20, 30 feet, and they're tossing like quarry-sized giant stones at one another. There's a real opportunity in a horror movie where kids are getting eaten and shit to have a kid get their head busted open, have somebody lose an eye. Instead, these kids are getting hobbled by like rocks to the legs and kicks to the ass. And we finally see Ben lose his shit. And I was like, oh, cool. We're going to see like some fat kid rage because I've seen that in real life. No one fucks with the fat kid because he will fucking murder you.
Eventually.
And we didn't even get to see that. He like shoved him and then like kicked him in the butt.
Is he really that fat? Ben today would be a healthy range child. But back then, I guess he was really fat.
No. I don't think he was even fat for back then. They really should have cast a fatter kid, in my humble opinion. He just looked athletic to me.
Yeah, the 90s fat kid, he was much better for the role. He was chunkier.
The 90s fat kid?
Yeah, the one that we see getting bullied when they return as an adult. When I think that fat kid was a better fat kid.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, I think that both of your points, a lot of this is like neutered in this movie because it's made for TV. Like, I don't know who thought it was a good idea to make Stephen King novels into made for TV films because you can't actually like do any of the shit that he does in his novels. And I mean, one positive is I was able to let Finn watch it. He's been wanting to watch it for forever because he knows that I love Pennywise. And so I let him watch the movie with me and he wasn't scared at all because this is not anywhere near as gory as like a Marvel film. And again, that's why you should watch the movie. It gets a lot closer in terms of that action.
Totally. And Gene, you're commenting about the actors and about kind of how hammy it is and how over the top. They took this shit really seriously. I read an article where John Ritter had a fight with the director because the director said, we're going to cut the whole scene where Ben is telling his friends about how he lost the weight and he started running. And John Ritter took the shit serious. He said, no, this is important. This is important to establish Ben's background, to understand the changes he's gone through. So these actors, as cheesy as they came across, to them, this was like their big moment. But again, you have John Ritter, who's been living in a sitcom world with two blonde roommates. What does he know about drama?
But dude, Three's Company ended in like 84. It was like 6 years ago. It was ancient history as far as like TV is concerned. John Ritter did other things between Three's Company and it. I don't know what they were, but I'm sure he did some things.
Well, the thing that's always stood out to me is the scariest part of this story is the scene with Beverly Marsh in the bathroom, where, you know, she hears something in the drain and then there's like that geyser, very a la like Nightmare on Elm Street, comes out and it makes her whole bathroom bloody. And then you already alluded to it, Gene, her dad comes in, he can't see it. And so then Bev is like strangely like ashamed of the blood and you know, she feels weird about it and she has to clean it up in secret. And it's a total allegory for a girl getting her period for the first time. Like, that's what it is. And it gives me the creeps, even as a 38-year-old woman who's been having periods for 24 years, to have to remember the first one that I had.
I think the movie does a good job at making everyday things or situations creepy. You get like the storm drains. We pass them all the time, but it's creepy. Like the shower in school, or maybe even like the sewer pipe you'll see on the side of the road, a sink, all that shit is creepy, but normal life, you just kind of go about the day and you never really think twice about it.
Big D, what the fuck is your everyday like? You spend a lot of time around sewer pipes, school showers, and storm drains? Like, no, I disagree. This isn't The Ring, which made me afraid of TVs, or like Requiem for a Dream, which made me afraid of heroin. These kids are going to places where kids just should not fucking be to begin with. They hang out at a place called The Barrens. They're asking for it.
Oh, I don't think they're asking for it. Like we talked, we used to love to hang around by the railroad tracks and down by like the rivers. This is a normal thing for kids. But back when this movie came out, Ash had hinted about it, that this was a lot of content that was not meant for TV. And the pushback that the producers got and that the rating board gave, there was an issue with the blood. Okay, there was a big issue when they had George's picture in the album and the blood would come out. The audience was shocked. People were like really upset. And this was like a big to-do that they were showing this on TV. But I couldn't believe they had no problem calling a young black child actor the N-word on a primetime show 3 times. This isn't Roots. This wasn't necessary. You called him boy about 5 or 6 other times. Couldn't we have cut the N-word? It made me realize, even though we got a mile to go, we got a long way to go still, but we have made some progress to where this is something that I couldn't believe it was okay.
I honestly prefer this. I think it worked. I do not think it's okay to call somebody the N-word in real life, but I absolutely think we shouldn't dilute racism when depicting its evil. Like, the only thing that surprised me about this scene was that when the shop owner came out from across the street and saw them like picking on Mike, I thought he was going to like join in, like call the cops and stuff and be like, you like N-word, you leave those fine young white boys alone, you know? So I don't know. When I'm looking back at the 60s, I don't want my 60s whitewashed. Like, I don't want what fuck, that was the wrong choice. I don't want my 60s to be, you know, sugar coated, right? I want the racism to be depicted in its horrifying truth.
So you want your racism to be genuine. You want it to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise we forget and it happens again.
The people be like, it wasn't so bad in the 60s. They called him boy. That could mean a lot of things. In the sewers, Stan is ambushed by Bowers and his gang, but it kills the gang and leaves Bowers traumatized with his hair turned white. Stanley regroups with the losers, who take advantage of its ability to access their imaginations. Eddie imagines his inhaler is full of battery acid, melting half of the creature's face. Beverly fires silver earrings at it, cracking its head. It retreats in a drain, revealing a large 3-fingered claw before it disappears. After concluding it is dead, the group exits the sewers and makes a promise to return if it should ever resurface. Bowers, driven insane by seeing it kill his friends, falsely confesses to the killings and is institutionalized.
So we get the worst special effect in maybe TV/movie history, which is the scene where they werewolf silver style its face, and Tim Curry does a great scream, and it sucks. I mean, I remember the spider looking like shit at the end of this movie, but when he sucked into that drain and he all of a sudden turns into Play-Doh, like, y'all, it was so bad. And here's the deal. Have him slide into a bigger hole. Like, why does he have to dissolve into a tiny hole? You'd think they could pick something bigger. It looks so bad. They could have chosen something else, but no, they kept it. It's awful. And I laughed out loud at the most inopportune time because of how shitty it looked.
I didn't laugh because I knew it was coming. One of the few scenes that I thought worked, besides the flipping album and the pictures coming to life, was that shower scene with the extending heads. And I was waiting for Pennywise to climb out, claymation-wise, and push the hole bigger and kind of come out. And you could tell it wasn't Pennywise. It was terrible. But they did some things I thought really worked. When Belch gets sucked into that sewer pipe and they fold him in half, and he's slowly getting pulled in there. And again, the ADR, you hear chomp, chomp, growl, growl, growl. I liked it. But the problem is with Stephen King, a lot of his stuff, it works when you're reading it because you can visualize it. Everybody has their own imagination of what that scene would look like. But when you have a limited budget and you're going to try to convert the written word into something up on screen that works for everybody, it's never going to work.
Yeah, but like when they made interesting choices about what to try to show and what not to show, though, because like, you know, Henry getting so scared that his hair turns white, it looked like they'd gone in and spliced Stephen King's It with like a Lita Ford music video. There's like a bright light from the front, and I just expected like, you know, him to like whip around and start singing it fucking Ozzy Osbourne or some shit. Ash, I have to ask you because I haven't seen the new movies. Do they split off at like is part one like the kids' story and part two the adult story? How does it work?
Yeah, the adults aren't at all in the first part of the movies, but it's cut in exactly the same spot as the miniseries. It's cut with them making the promise that they'll all come back together if it ever comes back.
Yeah, I get why this was a 2-part miniseries because halfway through, I paused the movie and I saw that we were only an hour and a half as they were like in the sewers. And I had the horrifying realization that the kids going into the sewers wasn't the final fight. I thought I was getting to the end of the movie. We still have to watch this shit all over again when they're adults. And then We later discover, they said like we have to come back if it ever comes back, that they just quit on the job. Like fucking Stan saw Pennywise again while they were still children, and apparently nobody gave a fuck. They're like, let's just get the fuck out of town.
No. That's a misunderstanding. He tells them a story later about an encounter he had with it before the encounter in the sewers. Like they find, because, Stan was like, no, it's not real. It's not real. And he finally admitted after the fact that he had that encounter with him.
Oh, so the whole thing with Silver when Stan like gets out of the house and
that
he gets
was
on the bike and he gets
the sewer part.
Okay, that is horrible sequencing.
It is terrible sequencing, but I will give you something here though, which is they kind of like buy that he's dead pretty easy. Like you shot him with 2 pieces of silver and a little bit of light came out, but that giant weird ass claw came out of that weird tiny drain. Like, how do you know he's dead?
All right, real talk. If the 3 of us went down to the sewer as children to fight a fucking interdimensional like creature or whatever the fuck it is, some eldritch horror, and we're down there, and Ash, you shot it in the head and its head fucking exploded with light, and then it went down a sewer, I'm calling the job done.
No,
I'm like, I'm good. We're good. We're out of here.
No, you gotta follow through.
No fucking chance.
You're gonna go down the drain? I'm not made of Play-Doh.
You're going to keep looking. You're going to keep try to find another like door, try to go down another hallway.
You're going to do what they did when they're adults and find the one random wooden door in all of the sewer system and go through it to his lair.
Listen, there is some self-doubt. When he goes down the hole, you hear, whoa, and he's still making noise. They all look at each other and they're kind of like winking like, hey, we he's dead, right? Yeah, we can go now. Let's. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'd be like,
dead.
yeah, we're done. Let's go.
No. They all knew he was not dead. They were just thinking, let's get out of here. Maybe he's injured. But Ash, as a book reader, maybe you can shed some more light on this. I remember what?
I like that Ash has gone from Ash as a woman. Could you tell us? And I was like, Ash, as a person who's read a book.
No, she's read this book.
As a woman who reads.
If I asked you about the orgy, fine.
And I also apparently know a lot about orgies as well. Go ahead.
You do.
Continue.
Not like ski instructor Big D over here.
Yeah. So there's a lot of content that they obviously could not show on TV. One that thankfully they did omit. In the book, Ash, you could probably shed some light on this because I have very little recollection. I had to actually go back and research it. But there's a scene where the kids kind of get friendly. Bev, obviously, she's been abused by the father. There's a cycle of abuse that continues throughout her life. Her new partner is obviously abusive. But the movie cuts out, from the book, there's a child orgy, if I remember correct. So in the book, I thought the group of losers, they were in this bad situation. They didn't know how to come together to form a united front against Pennywise. And Beverly, the only girl in the group, she says, you know what? I think what'll bring us together is if we just all have sex. I think she said something like, I think you should all put yourself inside me. And
put your thing in me.
Oh, put your thing in me. Okay. And then Stephen King goes into detail. And this is where my research came in. Okay. He doesn't miss a detail of this orgy. Mike comes to her, then Richie, and the act is repeated. Now she feels some pleasure, dim heat in her childish, unmature sex. And she closes her eyes as Stan comes to her and she thinks of the birds. What the fuck is Stephen King doing?
So this is like one of the most famous things of all of his books, right? Like everybody talks about it. The book's 1,100 pages long. So, you got to throw in an orgy scene, clearly. Anything over 1,000 pages, orgy. But my favorite is that Stephen King was interviewed about this, and he's got a great quote about what he said about why he did it and whether or not it should be put in the new movie, which it wasn't. And he says, intuitively, the losers knew they had to be together again. The sexual act connected childhood and adulthood. It's another version of the glass tunnel that connects the children's library and the adult library. Now, times have changed since I wrote that scene, and there's more sensitivity to those issues now. So child sex, not a big deal when he wrote it, but there's more sensitivity today.
This shit even came up at like coffee shop conversations when I was like 15 and we would all hang out at the coffee shop. And I think it was Ben, I'm not sure. But Stephen King also wrote that like she came because one of their dicks was really big, which is just like, dude, you can try to fucking, spackle over that fucking hole in the wall, but that shit's there. Like, we all know Stephen King. We see you. But I never read the book. I was getting the orgy vibes like when they were outside its lair as adults. Like, all the losers are adults and they're outside that door. And Eddie's like, I've never had sex because I've never been in love. I 100% expected Bev to offer herself. And then we discover, like, Eddie's gay. And then Eddie refuses. And then Bill offers himself. And then, like, once they're going, then, like, Richie, Ben, and Bev join in. I thought it was going to be that. Like, I knew, obviously, it was the TV in the 90s, so they weren't going to actually show us everybody fucking each other in that, like, Land of the Lost tunnel. But I thought that it would happen. At least be alluded to.
But what's still twisted is they hint at it. Cut the shit out. When Bev meets the group, she grabs Bill by the face, kisses him, then kisses Ben on the lips. So I'm like, shit, even though I kind of vaguely remembered it, you didn't need to do that.
Yeah, John Ritter was probably over there behind the camera being like, listen, it's very important that she kisses every single one. And then she's going to suck all our dicks.
Oh, very important. But I know that I want to talk about something that's important in a lot of these movies that we've talked about, whether it's Forrest Gump or Stand By Me, that the music sets the tone. They try to use it to get the audience involved and to reminisce. And even though this won a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Achievement in Music Composition, and it was nominated for an Outstanding Editing Award, to me, the music takes away from it. The entire vibe, I could feel they were trying to parrot Stand By Me. Okay, that worked. Let's try to get the music in there. We're going to get, even though we can't have the budget to shoot the 60s legitimately, that we're going to use it with songs, but the whole thing didn't work. It seemed forced to me. And the whole time I kept thinking that this was just a cheap knockoff of Stand By Me.
Yeah, and that's why we gave Stand By Me such high praise. Like, people don't really understand that the scores we gave Stand By Me were pretty generous for a Stephen King movie because it did a lot of things right, even though it wasn't perfect. Those kids, they had a bond and you actually felt it. Like, when they broke apart and went their separate ways, you felt something there, especially with like the herring ordeal that they had. You watched Stand By Me and you thought, like simpler times, true friendship. Those were the days where real bonds were forged between kids. It wasn't this internet age and they weren't all just playing video games all the time. You watch it and you're like, these motherfuckers got nothing better to do than build a dam. Like, that's the most fun thing that they can come up with in this series for the kids to do. Let's build a dam in the Barrens. Mm-hmm. Well, 30 years later, it reawakens and kills a little girl in her backyard. Mike contacts his old friends to fulfill their vow. All of the losers who have gone on to have successful careers return, except Stan, who commits suicide. Upon returning, they are all terrorized by Pennywise. Bowers escapes from the asylum to murder the losers, and Bill's British wife, Audra, travels to Derry but is captured by it. Bowers attacks and stabs Mike, but in return is killed by Eddie. The 5 remaining losers return to the sewers to confront it, and Bill discovers Audra has been taken prisoner. So we get this reunion scene, which felt a little real for me because I think all these characters are like younger than I am. And they're like, hey, old man, I haven't seen you in forever. I'm like, holy shit, I am old. But they all get together at this Chinese restaurant, which, like, by the way, 90s Chinese restaurants, chef's kiss. I mean, they're so fucking beautiful. I miss those things. But I felt so bad for the owners of this restaurant. They had every right to kick the losers out because imagine yourself, you're trying to run a restaurant. You're probably the only Chinese restaurant in Derry, Maine. You got all these rich out-of-towners showing up. The lady walks in, she passes out. The gay dude's having an asthma attack. John Ritter shows up. He's passing around shots. And then some comedian on a Coke binge goes in the bathroom. He's talking to himself in the bathroom mirror. They're all screaming at their fortune cookies. And what's weird is, like, not a patron in the restaurant notices because it's fucking Derry and no one gives a fuck that an entire catastrophe is happening before their eyes.
The poor lady checks in like 4 times. Everything okay? Are you okay? Is everything good in here? And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. As they're seeing the fortune cookie with eyes and little crab arms and a lot of shit that was ridiculous.
And I don't understand. Like, again, I love drinking. Everyone knows that. I'm a fucking booze hound. But if we were all having nightmares and hallucinations and we were here to gather again against this like killer fucking demon in the sewers and shit, I'm not drinking that night. like I'm probably not getting a full tummy either. Like I'm just gonna fucking chill. And I don't know if this was like its effect on them because they're adults and it just keeps like trying to soothe them and cloud their minds or whatever. But yeah, it just seems like a bad idea to be going on a fucking wine and Chinese food binge, which normally is a great idea.
I think that it's like the only fucking thing to do is to get wasted the night before you're going to go take on fucking it.
Ma'am, I would like to counter with an offer of an orgy.
I think that that also sounds like a perfect thing to do the night before you're going to encounter it. Yes. You're about to die. Drink. Have some sex. Have some good Chinese food.
Yeah.
Go to bed. Go kill a, interdimensional clown monster.
No, I'm okay with the adult orgy. It was the kid thing that I thought was a bit strange, but there's parts of this movie that are missing. Okay.
Glad we drew the line somewhere.
Yeah, but you got time here for the Chinese food. We're going to have time to reminisce. We're going to lay down by the fire in the hotel. We're going to tell stories. How about you guys start to prep? We didn't see them prep as kids. There was at no point that the kids got together and said, hey, what do we know? What do we think we can do? How can we prep? Other than the slingshot test, who's going to shoot the best out of 10? You don't know that the silver works. Nothing. There's no prepping. And as an adult, I'll forgive the kids. But now you come in here. These are adults. They're well established. They're all successful. There's no kids. They got tons of disposable income. Later, Richie jokes, hey, where's the machine guns? Yeah, guess what? You dude should have prepped. You should have come back. You knew what Pennywise was. You knew it took silver. So why the fuck don't you guys show up to Derry armed to the fucking teeth with everything that you could afford? Commando style. Let's get a montage. These wealthy fuckers go into a store. They get prepped. Silver bullets, boom. Grenades, claymores, AK-47s. We'll get some body armor, tactical gear, motion sensors. How about we get some polarized sunglass lenses to protect from the deadlights? Get some communication, some walkie-talkies, maybe some video equipment. Why couldn't they do that? Because no adult is going to come back there and be like, hey, we beat him with a slingshot first time. And this time Bev shows up. She doesn't even practice. Yeah, she took the slingshot home, but when's the last time you think she shot that?
And that's why this movie couldn't be made in like 2021, because if you had adults in 2021, one of them's like take tactical shooting classes. The other one's like a CrossFitter that would just like lift up it and like throw them through the ceiling. You got like the marathon runner that would just get away. Somebody's doing Krav over there. Somebody's doing jujitsu and just putting it in a chokehold. Like adults are fucked up now and everybody owns guns. But yeah, I agree on the guns though, Big D, because when they got to it in its physical form, it was basically like a double dare physical challenge. Like it was as simple as putting your hands in its guts and tearing its heart out. That's pretty easy. A gun would be great.
I refuse to believe that a gun, that it could be that simple. And if anything, like you're describing like what like Minutemen, like a little militia would do. Like these are like loser people. Like they're not going to know what to do with guns. They're going to wind up shooting each other.
Fine. Okay. So here we understand that it's their belief, their faith that can turn an asthma pump into acid, that it'll turn anything. Get a fire hose. Guys show up there with super soakers. We're all going to believe that this is some kind of an acid. Whatever you want to prep with. But they have one flashlight. They have no walkie-talkies. Nobody's got any kind of equipment. You got to go down there. Why don't you have pockets full of silver? You got your face on the cover of Time magazine as an architect. You don't go down there and give Beverly more than 2 shots?
But they also don't know if the silver works because it's back again.
Yeah, but they still take it down there and they're like, we've only got these 2. I'm like, you fuckers can't afford silver? You're still using the stolen earrings? You cheapskates?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the more ridiculous thing here is fucking Bill. Like, I get that Bill's supposed to be the hero of the story. Fine, whatever. I can deal with him. But, like, be a hero, Bill. So here you are. You find out your wife, Audra, has been taken. You find her ugly-ass handbag in the sewer. And then you're going to run off like an idiot. And then he comes around a corner, slips and falls. And what does our hero do? He puts his hands on his face and goes, oh, and then kind of stutters something. I mean, this guy deserves to be killed as much as Kane did last week in Alien. He's basically sticking his head over an alien vagina and getting a face hugger. You don't stop in a sewer that is occupied by a killer spiritual being. Eddie should have lived. Bill should have died.
Yeah, I mean, what did you expect? Like, Bill looked like he wanted to sell you an Encyclopedia Britannica. And I would question his leadership when the first time we went down in the sewers as kids, like the fucking giant light pod comes over you. It's already killed a couple kids, and his best idea is everyone hold hands. Hold hands?
I think that was code for get Beverly in here. Let's all hold hands. That's what he was talking about.
The hand holding was the stand-in for the orgy?
Exactly. Yeah, guys, we're about to die. Beverly, can we all hold hands again?
And this is the bizarre paradox of Stephen King, because you've got a guy who's writing about 11-year-old orgies, but he also feels the need to throw some sort of like moral lesson into every fucking horror story. And it's so gross. Like, leave my horror stories alone and let them just be depraved and disgusting with no like moral resolution, no redemption. Every kid here has a problem that they've got to like get over that comes back to haunt them, right? Bill, he stutters and he's dealing with the death of his brother. Bev is abused by her father and all her friends are trying to bang her. Mike experiences racism. Richie has the tears of a clown. Stan is a Jewish Boy Scout, apparently. Ben is fat, and Eddie's the victim of Munchausen by proxy. Like, for a child to have childhood trauma, is it not enough that they all survived battling an eldritch horror as children? Like, could that just be the thing that they have in common?
No, I think you have to look back to Stephen King himself. Obviously, he was terrorized by some greasers when he was a kid. I'm going to give you this plot, Gene. You described here, okay? And tell me what movie this is. You got death of a brother, parental abuse, bullying by greasers with a switchblade, and you got a fat kid. What's that sound like?
And a kid whose dad was a veteran, and it shattered the lives of their family. Yeah, this is clearly Stand By Me.
Yeah, Stephen King has a formula. Go back and look at it.
Oh, and a kid who lost his dad in a war. Jesus Christ. All we needed was the Indian burial ground, and this would have been like a 5 for 5 on
no, you needed the orgy on the train tracks too. That was messy.
I actually would do that. The losers reach its inner sanctum, find the catatonic Audra, and discover its true form of a gigantic, otherworldly spider. Bill, Ben, and Richie are entranced by the deadlights, and Eddie is mortally wounded. Beverly wounds it by firing silver earrings into its abdomen, and the losers rip out its heart. The losers go their separate ways once again, their memories of it and each other fading over time. Bill is the last to leave Derry, coaxing Audra out of her catatonia by riding down a street on his childhood bike, Silver. Audra recovers, and she and Bill kiss in the middle of town. I'm not saying that the movie was incredible early on, but toward the end, we're like approaching Game of Thrones season 8 levels of disappointment. The door to its lair, when they finally get there, it is literally like a tiny wooden door. Like, it looked like they were going to like into Imaginarium or something. It's got like lit candles and decorative skulls that somebody's like lighting and arranging. It squeaks, so I'm guessing it fucking has hinges. Again, getting back to like the audio issues. And then they go in and we get like this painted backdrop of victims. There's odd concert lighting that they stole from The Who. And then we get like this Land of the Lost giant spider with googly eyes. Like, nothing about this was excusable from a feature that had a budget in the same range as Tremors.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's Stephen King. Let's put the blame where it needs to be laid. And it's that he can't finish to save his life.
No.
Like, all of his books have horrible endings. And this book especially doesn't give them a lot to work with. And they just really kind of fuck it up. I mean, because the actual book has this whole thing where like it's laid eggs and they have to destroy the eggs, and then they come out after they've killed it, and like the scars on their hands have gone away, and then like the whole town of Derry collapses and the storm blows through, which means that Derry's finally dying, and so it's just, I mean, it wasn't great.
Why do we keep falling for it? King cannot finish to save his life. Everything he does depends on the reader's imagination, and somehow we keep coming back. I felt like an idiot for reading The Stand. I felt like a fool. I get all the way through this great journey. I can't even remember how many thousands of pages this thing was. And at the end, it's the hand of God that comes out and picks up the missile from Trash Can Man and fucking squeezes it. I was like, did I really just read this whole book to get here? Did I really just read this whole book to get to a giant spider? Okay, let's just get over the fact that how would a creature of that size navigate through the sewer? But in the book, it was far worse. Ash, you got to please just fill in the holes here for me. I remember an ancient, giant, massive turtle named Maturin, who was from the Macroverse, who meets the kids at some kind of like a seance, and he tries to support the kids. He encourages them. And when Bill defeats it, Matchroom comes back. He comes out of his shell, and he's about to go back to sleep again. He tells Bill, "Hey, compliments on your victory, but make sure you finish it off." Am I wrong that there was some cosmic meeting with a turtle?
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. He gives them the key to how to defeat Pennywise.
Aren't Pennywise and him like mortal enemies too?
Well, he's one of the 12 guardians of the beams that held up the Dark Tower.
Oh, the Dark Tower.
Yeah, so it's like how everything's like kind of like all connected. He lives in the Macroverse, and he's got endless amounts of wisdom and power. It's fine.
So do we want to see the giant turtle on screen?
Well, what's funny is that they thought about doing that in the movie, and they're like, we're just going to let Mike be kind of like him and discover all of the Native American rituals, and that'll be fine. It'll be good.
And speaking of satisfying endings, though, as the movie drew to a close, like I was kind of satisfied with this melancholy ending. There was a beauty to it, right? Everyone starts to lose their memories of the events. They all drift apart. They're growing into adulthood. Audra's catatonic. Like there's no happy ending here. But then there's Bill's rusted-ass childhood bike, Silver, which Mike, by the way, incorrectly told him was fine other than a flat tire. That bike was fucked up. Anyway, Bill slaps Audra's comatose ass on the bike. He rides into traffic, and she snaps out of it for a lusty kiss in the middle of an intersection. And please, God, even if there's a turtle, I hope this is not in the book.
Gene, from the point where they kill the spider, there is 100 pages that cover.
But that's the orgy, right?
No, it covers the race on Silver to bring back Audra. This is a big part. It's bigger than we say.
So the storm comes through, it destroys the town. They all start forgetting what happened, including Mike, and like even like his journals start to like fade. They all forget each other, although somehow Bev and Ben don't, because they wind up together. And then, they all leave, and Mike decides to go live somewhere else, thank God. And then finally Bill is the last one to leave, and the magic of Silver saves Audra, and the book ends with a kiss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah. Now's the time we give our wipe scores for it. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get our perspective. But 0 wipes is a perfect movie, is meeting up with your 40-something friends for dinner and drinks at a very 90s small-town Chinese restaurant. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It is reliving the trauma of experiencing battery at the hands of a gang in broad daylight, only to be immediately grabbed by your male friends who won't stop possessively wrapping their arms around you and trying to kiss you. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for it?
So the trauma that these children went through is nothing compared to what I had to suffer through. This is a 3+ hour movie. It was so long, and I had to break it up over multiple days. I had to rent it twice. So iTunes got $8 out of me for this movie, and I suffered. This movie was not what I remembered, but what could I expect from a made-for-TV movie? They should never try to convert Stephen King's material for television. It will not work. Without Tim Curry, this movie would have been forgotten as quickly as the Langoliers or the Tommyknockers. This is a 3.5 white movie.
Yeah, this movie has 2 things going for it, in my opinion. The rest is crap. Tim Curry is fabulous. I agree. Although I do think Pennywise would be better with an English accent rather than a New York accent, just to add a little razzle dazzle on there. And the movie is surprisingly quotable. Like there were several times where I said, yeah, that's a great line. Lines like "kiss me, fat boy," and the guy at the pharmacy, "nothing like a good pull on the old lung, sucker." But Stephen King I agree, he isn't scary in TV form, and every attempt at drama from this cast just winded up looking cheesy and laughable. I'm going to go a little bit lower than you, Big D. This is a 4-wiper for me.
Yeah, I mean, I said it last week. I take the podcast rating system really seriously. And last week I gave a perfect score, and I'm proving that I take it seriously and not just give scores based off of the movies I like, because I love this movie still. I love this story, but objectively, it's not very good. It's got a great nostalgia feeling, like this whole movie of the week from the 90s, which I find strangely comforting. But the nostalgia isn't always a quality thing. And that's true here. It's this great story, I think. I think Pennywise is an incredible villain. I think Curry is absolutely great in this. And some of the kids are okay. Jonathan Brandis, we didn't even talk about him. Jonathan Brandis is adorable. But the movie itself is just, it's just kind of there. It's worse than average. I'll keep watching it most likely for nostalgia. But if I want the scares, I'll pick up the book. I'll watch It Part 1 that came out a few years ago. I think it's a little bit of a bummer, but it's 3.5 wipes.
Ash, if I could ask you quickly, I've seen the new Part 1. How is the new Part 2?
I mean, it's like all the part 2s. I mean, the part 2 of the book, it's just not as strong, but they do a great job because Bill Hader is absolutely fantastic in it as Richie. You've got James McAvoy, who's really good as Bill. Jessica Chastain is great as Beverly. And the thing that I like the best about it is they create this really good cohesion between the kids and the adults without having to like have them rub their face creepily. Like it just makes a lot of sense. So,
well, with 3.5 wipes from Big D and Ash and 4 wipes from me, that gives us an average wipe score of 3.666 for it.
Done.
So Gene with a Shat score of 3.666. That now ties this movie in the 219 spot with Twister, Porky's, Jingle All the Way, and Trading Places.
I would watch any of those before I watch this again.
Oh, you couldn't make me watch this again.
What about half of this?
Yeah, the first half I liked. I thought the kids were great.
Half of this versus Porky's.
I would not watch Porky's. I'd watch the second half of this over Porky's.
The second half or the first half?
The second half only, I think, is better than Porky's.
Oh, I'm only watching the first half.
Ash, you told me you liked boobs.
I mean, I have them. I mean, no, boobs are great. Boobs are fine, but boobs in a shitty movie don't make it a good movie.
Teach his own. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, before we go to the next week's movie, I just want to promote one thing that we're doing here quickly. A lot of our international listeners have said they want to call in and leave a voicemail, but they can't do it through our Shat line. So we now have a new feature on shatthemovies.com. It's a feature that's provided by SpeakerPipe. So on the right-hand side or at the bottom of your browser, a little red button, you hit it, you can record a voicemail right from your phone. It is a little app that will open up, so you don't need to make a phone call. You can record it, play it back, send it to us, and we hope to get some messages from our international listeners in the weeks to come. But next week, we are doing another movie in the month of Hot Sauce Steve. The crusading nobleman Robin of Locksley escapes from prison in Jerusalem and returns home to find the evil Prince John has confiscated his family estate and is abusing the citizens. Robin enlists the blind attendant Blinken, his friend Will Scarlett O'Hara, and Little John to help regain his home. Robin also hopes to woo the beautiful maiden Marian, but her chastity belt may prove a challenge. Commissioned by Steve W., came out in 93. And I was not a fan of the last Mel Brooks movie we did, so hopefully this one's a little better.
Oh, God, I could quote this whole movie from start to finish. When we watched this the same weekend as we watched it, and I did every rap break. I quoted there are rap breaks in this. I'm getting confused. Like there's great rap breaks. And then I quoted so much that people asked me to stop watching it with them. But I'm so nervous, Gene, about you watching it.
Listen, it can't be worse than Prince of Thieves.
No, it's because some of the jokes have not aged well.
I mean, I just saw Stephen King's It from 1990.
No, I know, but like there's a whole line, we may look like pansies, we may look like sissies, but we're manly men. It's just different.
Isn't that a whole song they do?
We may look like pansies, but don't get it wrong or else we'll put out your lights. We're manly men.
In tights. See, I haven't even seen it, but I could tell the lines.
Always on guard, defending the people's rights. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still better than fucking the pistol and the fucking stamen.
And strangely, we cover John Ritter one week, and then we cover his widow the second one, Amy Yazbek.
And now you know.
Stay tuned for next week's musical episode of Shat the Movies. Thank you, Hot Sauce Steve, for the month of Steve. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to join us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com. Don't forget to hit us up on SpeakerPipe. You can find that on the website, shatthemovies.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey to help attract advertisers, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. Also, you can check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. You can find all that information on our website, shatontv.com, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, be sure to leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Ash and Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
20th Century Fox presents the motion picture event of the summer. The summer of 1125 AD.
That's him! Robin Hood.
Good evening.
The Hoods from the Woods are back.
Yo, yo, yo! Check it out.
Little John.
Ow!
Prince John.
More bubbles. Oh, yeah, just now it's happening.
The Sheriff of Rottingham.
I challenge you to a duel.
I accept.
Maid Marian.
A chastity belt?
It's an everlast.
And a Rabbi Tuckman.
Hello, boys.
He's the first action hero.
And white men can't jump.
And the last word in comedy.
And why should the people listen to you?
Because, unlike some other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent.
Robin Hood, Men in Tights, a Mel Brooks film.
Yes!
The legend had it coming.